radio show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to a Friday morning edition of The Big Puzzle, coming to you live from my living room in northern British Columbia here through the facilities of UCY TV. Thank you very much, UCY, for giving me this opportunity to talk on Friday mornings. Today I'm joined by a lady who I guess it's been almost 3 years now that I've known Barbara. I met her through radio stations and internet connections and have had many, many heart-to-heart conversations with this woman. Her insight and feelings about what's going on in the world today really come from her heart, and I want to thank Barbara for joining me today. And we don't have a scripted show. We're basically just going to get into a conversation about what we see going on in our world today and how it plays into some of the prophecies that we understand are being unfolded in front of us. And with that being said, Barbara, thank you for joining me today, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Barry. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Well, you know what, Barbara, we see an oligarchy of events unfolding in our world today. To say that we're being bombarded with all kinds of negatives in our world right now would be an understatement. What do you think? What do you really feel about what's going on right now, and how does that play into some of the prophecies that you've read and understood? I know that you've been studying prophecies for probably 30 years of your life now, and you are a well-known spiritual person. What do you think about what's going on?
Well, yeah, it's been over 30 years that I guess you could say that had been thrown onto a particular path. You know, it's sort of like when Creator needs you someplace on the great medicine wheel. If you're resisting, you're going to get hit with a couple of 2x4s, and I think there's a lot of 2x4s flying around at this time. People need to wake up, get into places where they're meant to be, and shift and change and listen. And yes, about prophecy, well, I've certainly received prophecies myself, and I am very involved with Indigenous people, my people, and the elders' prophecies, and others that that I don't know personally, but it seems that we are living in the time of prophecy. I have known about certain prophecies for, as I said, over 30 years, and now we're there. We are in that prophetic times, and it's pretty stunning when you've known something for many years and something has come to you personally or others have spoken about it, and now you see it unfolding right there in your time. It's pretty amazing and also powerful, and I feel ultimately that we are in extraordinary times. And we've been moving all along incrementally. One part is we've been being incrementally like herded into a corral. And others have been sort of like holding back and not willing to go into that corral. Something touched them something called to them, something awakened them or shifted them. And so now those of us who are like that are observing all this happening. And we've been saying this for years on the radio. Wake up, people. Don't you see? You know what's coming. Wake up. This is happening. That's happening. And people just have their heads in the sand or down, or I don't know, we could call it many things. I know part of it is the brainwashing, the systematic brainwashing for generations that has taken place not only upon us, but our grandparents and great-grandparents and so on. So, I could go throw out in there that, the American dream or the America Great Again was never great for many people. The American dream is dead. Been dead for a long while. And I think it was sort of like a little piece of chocolate at a period of time that gave to the people just a little bait. That's all. But guess what? That's being taken away. Now the real stuff is happening, and people are finding it difficult to see the real stuff. They're very difficult, finding it difficult to say this can't be happening. This can't be my government. This can't be happening to the world. This can't be happening to me, to us. So, you have all this confusion and the prophecy of chaos. Well, I was given a prophecy years ago that chaos will be rising, and stunning you. People will be shocked and stunned at the chaos. And remember the words, President Bush, shock and awe?
Mm-hmm.
So, we are in shock and we are in awe. Chaos is on the rise. There are many to point to, and not one is to blame. They're all part of the system. Those on top, I call it, the people in the castles, like the kings and queens never disappeared, and the serfs are still present. The kings and the queens owned all the land, ruled all the serfs. The serfs went to war for them. The serfs, had a pittance. The kings and queens got everything. That is still here in existence. We have the elite, and we have the underdogs. We have the, disenfranchised, the underprivileged. The gap is widening, so this was never a democracy, in my estimation. As we live on Turtle Island here in the United States. Canada is part of Turtle Island. Originally all one. All the people here in, the Dakotas, the Missouris, the Catskills, the Hudson Valley, all the indigenous people all traveled back and forth. There were no borders. There were no fences. There were no corrals. There were no signs, saying private property. So everyone was free and moving, as nomads on this land, all the way up. Our people came from South Dakota all the way up there to Canada. Some of the people, the Lakota people, are up there too. So this is what it was, So then, we all know the story of the arrival of our relatives. I mean, I'm not full blood. Some of my relatives came over there from Europe, from Ireland, from England. So the people on Turtle Island, the First Nations people who lived here on Turtle Island, there were millions. And who arrived on the shores here arrived under the flag of Manifest Destiny. And Manifest Destiny basically is about colonizing. When you have colonizers, there's about genocide. So slavery, genocide, and separatists, and privilege, and so on and so forth. That's what this country was founded on. So for many, it was not great. And so now we're at a point where we have people in the streets screaming, we want our country back. This is our country. They how they're trying to erase the history by taking the statues down, and they don't put the real history in the history books. Guess what? There's been lies about our history from the beginning. So the real history, the real truth about humanity, about our origins, about humanity, about who we really truly are, has been manipulated and erased. If you think you know history, I believe you're wrong. So the history of this country and so on and what happened here has been forgotten and certainly covered up, the truth of these things, But it's kind of a let's look at it like tentacles, like an octopus's tentacles that spread out, connecting to the whole world. It's not just here in the United States. So we are all connected in the way that we are all having troubles. And my last remark on the chat this morning was we're all on the res. If you know what that means, it's the reservation. So whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're red, whether you're brown, it doesn't matter. We're all being shoved onto the reservation. And that means complete control. That means Agenda 21, which is now shifted into Agenda 2030, which means if you want to know what that really means, don't read their site, don't read their information on their link, because that's all lies. Read behind what's behind. Because read Soylent Green, then you'll know what Agenda 2030 is going to be. Exactly. And also, it's like people, I guess the fear levels are, of course, ever present and rising. The chaos is present and rising. And then, of course, on the other side, you have the violence and the hatred, because as history shows us, there has always been violence and hatred upon others. There has always been some faction manipulating the minds of people to pit them against each other. That's an agenda. Because if you really knew the true history, you'd awaken and say, wait a second. In our way, in the Lakota tradition, we have a word called Matakwiyeoyasin, which means we are all related. And we're related by nature. And of course, we are also related to nature. But our nature relates us because we are all humans. We are all human beings. Inside, we are all the same. We all have heart, we all have blood, we all have livers, we all have organs, all the same. We all cry, we all laugh, we all joy. We want peace. We want health. We want well-being. The only difference is the fact that we are rainbow colors. If you put black, red, and yellow and white together, you get part of the rainbow colors. So we call ourselves the rainbow people, rainbow warriors, right? But some of us are sidetracked and just holding on to the color that they jumped into when they got here and believe that they are the elite or the supreme ones or, superior than. And this is all part of the agenda. What we see today happening in the world, in Charlottesville, everywhere we are looking, is part of a manipulation, an agenda by the controllers. It's not, people say, the elite, or the cabal, or the Rothschilds, or the Illuminati. Well, they're all part of that something. It's a big party, but in my sense, and you and I have talked about this, I came to the realization, because I've questioned, okay, who's behind this? And people say, the Rothschilds, the Illuminati, I say, yeah, but there's something else. There's something else, and I feel it, And so basically, it's sort of like I just came to the realization that what is happening? Everything is being destroyed. Literally, we see it. Mm-hmm. Our lives are being destroyed. Our health is being destroyed. The earth is being destroyed. The waters are being destroyed. The air. Well, who would want to do such a thing? Aha. That was the question that led me to my perspective, which is the only one that I could imagine that would hate the beauty, hate all that is sacred, hate all this would be, people say devil, people say Lucifer. It doesn't matter. It is the darkest evil, and it is a frequency. It is an energy. You can give it a name if you want. You could give me a picture with some guy with horns and a tail with a horn. It does not matter. It is present, and it is powerful, and we are in the midst of that influence.
Absolutely, Barbara. I couldn't agree with you more. I see it perpetrating itself all over our planet right now. I ask myself how far society is going to fall in their moral standards before society realizes that they have to change. We see evil in our world now. We see it being perpetrated through Hollywood. We see satanic cults rising in mass numbers around the planet. There's a war going on right now, and it's a spiritual war. And people really have to identify this as being the enemy. The people in governments are just being pulled. They're just the people that the strings are being pulled on. by these very, very evil forces. And like you said, Barb, you can call him Lucifer, you can call him the devil, you can call him the dark side. He is there, and there is a war going on right now in this world. And if people can't see it, the way our society is going, anytime in human history a society has spiraled downwards the way our society has morality, moralistically, that society has fallen apart, and history will repeat itself. And if we don't see a spiritual awakening in the United States of America and around the world, I believe that we're going to go the same way as the Romans.
Well, not only the Romans, if you want to get into earlier times, you want to get into Lemuria, if you want to get into Atlanta, those cultures, if you want to get into Star Wars, that the Vedas talked about, all the ancient...
Romans as one example. I was just using the Romans as one example.
Yeah, I know, but but that is history. So we have to know that there's history is repeated itself with the Romans, but there was history before that, where great civilizations fell. So you have this continuing system like that, rise and fall, rise and fall, rise and fall. And, we have, the ancient people left us so many messages, about the real things, about the real truth. And they've been called myths, or fantasies or stories around the campfire kind of thing. But I think people have to really realize that the efforts that the ancient people went to leave these messages, histories, pictographs, petroglyphs, all this stuff, monuments, monolithic structures, and so on, were telling us something very different. It's not just a bedtime story. So, I'm looking at our history today, and I just see the, you asked me how I was, and I said, well, I'm doing okay. What else can you say? But I've seen, observing everything and also sensing things and receiving information and guidance telepathically and then through others who are tuned in. We are in times that are trying, as they say, trying men's souls. Will include women too. But you know what I mean. And I feel, I do believe, and you can't get away from this. Well, you could if you don't believe. I believe that this is about our spiritual selves. This is a spiritual war. And you said if people don't realize about the spirituality and so on and so forth, then, things aren't going to change. And on some level, that's true. But it has to begin with ourself, individually. And we can't keep getting sidetracked with pointing to other people. If they don't wake up, if they don't get this, if they don't do this, if they don't do that. Now this is a timeline here. We've reached a particular pinnacle in the timeline that has shifted us into a different paradigm. Now there's two prophecies here. We're looking at the prophecy, what we call the fifth world or fifth hoop, 1,000 years of peace prophecy. Now this is indigenous prophecy, and this was also a prophecy given to me personally by spirit. And then you have the biblical prophecy speaks of the same thing, the shift, change, 1,000 years of peace. Mm-hmm. So I put those two together and I said, wow, look at that. I find that intriguing. Not coincidental. And then we have the other prophecy of this fifth world of peace is a different frequency. I mean, you want to say what makes it different? What makes it peaceful? It's a frequency, because it's we shift into a frequency, either that high frequency that the fifth world emanates, or we remain in the low frequency, the fourth world of chaos. We're in the world of chaos now, but we've been in that, for millennia here, that chaotic energy, that frequency. But we've seen it rising. We've seen it rising through acts of violence. We've seen it rising through, shocking, abominable behaviors of people. Mm-hmm. We've seen the political system and all that unfolding. the financial education, we've seen it all, but it's rising. It's like within the past like 10 or 15 years, suddenly it's spiked. And now today, in 2017, we are not fully in the, let's say, the blown up, let's say, or the blowout point of, that chaos, which it will come to. We're experiencing just the tip of it now. And so when you say things are not going to get better until people, stop the madness, stop the hate, well, take the statues down. The statues will make it all better. That's not going to happen. It's just not. You might as well then go to all the museums and take all the statues down. Take the statue of Nero down. Take the statue of Bush, Cheney, Kissinger. Take their statues down. Take all the statues down of people who have done harm and horrible things to other people. Well, we got a lot of statues to remove. It's not going to change anything energetically. It'll just be satisfaction because you can spit on that statue when it's on the ground and stamp around on it and raise your fist like you're woohoo. I'm a man, or I did my thing.
I've seen these guys kicking the concrete.
It's not going to change anything.
Wait a second. Why are you kicking a concrete statue? You're going to lose.
Well, there you go. I'm just saying, you see, it's a frequency. That's an energy. It's a raging energy.
I know.
It's a violent energy.
Yeah.
And that's not going to get you to the 1,000 years of peace, because it's a different frequency. It's a different energy. And this is where we've come to. It's always been this about energy. We are energetic beings. Every part of ourself has a frequency. Our heart has one of the highest frequencies known. And this has been, I guess you could say, scientifically shown. The earth has a frequency, her heartbeat, a rhythm of the earth, these planets, different star systems, planets have sound frequency. Oh, everybody's talking out there. Everyone has a frequency, and it's all in relationship, so on. Humans are the only one who've lost their way to inner standing, and I use the term inner standing rather than understanding. Humans are the ones who've forgotten their way, their original instructions, their purpose and reasons for being. Nature, the Mother Earth and all of nature, maintains its original instructions and continuing to function on the high frequencies of the rhythms and pulse of harmony and balance. And humans have corrupted that because we have ego. We have free will. So we have the right and will to choose. And whatever you choose emanates a frequency. If you choose, we could say, if you choose love, to be loving, that's a different frequency as compared to if you choose to hate. Way different frequency. You can feel it. You know it. So here we are in this timeline, and the 1,000 years of peace, we could say the fifth world, 1,000 years of peace, is about the alignment, of course, of the age of enlightenment, which is Aquarius. And, there's a lot of, like I said, tentacles here. So we are all part of prophecy. I guess you could say, what do you want to manifest? Because it's in our hands. It is in our hands. That's why we are called beings with free will and co-creators. So it's not them and us. It's all of us, right? But people are into the separation mode. They did this, they did that. They're not doing this, they're not doing that. And that's part of the agenda. I think this is the piece that people need to really understand, that they are being manipulated. And we have been being manipulated. And it's all really a big lie. So the manipulation continues through the media, through the electromagnetic systems, brainwashing, and so on. You all know about the Matrix. So that's really real because it is an energetic experience. So,
Absolutely. Really, if we talk about frequencies, one of the things that I've had conversations with people that are free energy inventors about frequencies, and when it comes time that they really want to lay down the law on the human race, I believe they can use frequencies against us, Barb. Something I've talked about lots on with
Well,
Larry
they're
Reed.
already using frequencies.
They
They're
are,
already
and
doing that. So it's
they
nothing
are,
new. It's
they
just that it's
are,
going to be
yeah.
ramped up, you see.
I've really looked into Morgellons disease here in the last couple of weeks, and I've been studying that. I've been studying what they can exactly do now with nanotechnology, just how far they've gone. The amount of information that we know about nanotechnology is only a fraction of what they actually have. The technology they have, I believe, is 30 or 40 years ahead of what we're allowed to understand they have at this point. So that's a big question in my mind. Exactly how are they going to use frequencies against the human race when it comes time to bring the hammer down on us? And boy, what a perfect weapon that would be, eh, Barb? Make guns kind of obsolete, wouldn't it?
Well, let me tell you, they are already testing these frequencies upon people, and I have noticed this, and I've talked about this for the last 2 years on shows because I've been studying and researching behaviors of people throughout the country and throughout the world, specifically here in the United States, because I've noticed certain trends, a certain trend of behavior, an odd, bizarre, shocking behavior. And I
Hmm.
call it a trend because suddenly it pops up, just like Zika, or just like hantavirus, or just like, whatever, um, Lyme disease. There's trends that pop up, suddenly they appear, like Lyme, Connecticut. That's where Lyme started. So we never had Lyme here. We never had ticks here. I mean, I live here in the Hudson Valley, New York State. We never ever had anything like that. I was born here. Suddenly, in Lyme, Connecticut, comes this Lyme disease and jumps the river, the Great River, and many other rivers to get over here in New York State. That's an odd thing to me. And the hantavirus, the same thing down there in the Southwest. Hitting the native people there, and the elders were saying the mice don't never ever have carried anything like this to kill people like that, like with a snap of a finger, and then it disappeared. Comes, kills people, goes away, and on and on and on. These are trends, and then the behavior of people, the behavior where you look at people, say, these people are crazy, vile behavior, horrible things, not only done to themselves but to others and to innocent children. And I'm not talking about pedophilia, I'm talking about other types of things that are
Hmm.
shocking to you. And then it goes away. But there will be pockets of this happening in the country. And I note these things. So I know they're testing this mind control, the frequencies, the mind control thing, the introduction of all these technologies. They're testing them to see, number one, how do they affect people? And number two, are people awake? Do they realize this? Are people making note of this? Like you could say, oh yeah, the conspiracy theorists are making note of this. They know what's going on, but guess what? They're a joke. And
Yes.
they've made sure that they've set that up. That's another brainwashing. Anybody that is opposing, the government rule or whatever you want to call it, the agenda, opposing, they're conspiracy nutcases.
Yeah,
And
we're
so
lunatics.
that's a brainwashing, you know. So alternative news now, by the way, is being severely attacked again,
Hmm.
seriously, and it's due to this recent, well, let's say the shift occurred due to the Charlottesville um, situation and the Nazism and the rising supremacy, white supremacy activists on Facebook, on all those, places. Now they're taking them down. Now they're taking them down, and everybody's going to say, "Yay, yay!"
Yeah.
But they're also taking down alternative news places, like
Yeah, actually, Barbara, in Canada here, the one outlet that really tells the truth in media is the Rebel outlet, Rebel Media, and I urge people to go to the Rebel Media and listen to some of the videos they put out about what's going on in our country. They're in an all-out attack right now against the Rebel Media. They're suing the owners. They've all of a sudden all kinds of legal action is being taken against the owners and the co-owners of the Rebel Media. The same thing is happening with Josh Sigurdsson in Winnipeg Free Press, Winnipeg Free Media is being attacked, is being sued. We see
many
an
of them,
outright.
and many, many,
It's
many of them. And but the point is
yeah,
people have to realize the people who say, "Yeah, woohoo," they're taking down, the alt right or the Nazi, whatever, sites, guess what? You're saying yay to that, but that
You're
they
saying
lump.
yay to the quash of free speech, folks.
That's exactly right.
Through
And
the
this
weapon
is
of
what,
political correctness.
yeah, this is what people don't get, what they're shooting for, what they're rallying for. They want to quiet a certain faction of people that they believe are wrong, and some of them definitely are wrong. I'm not siding with any of them. What I'm saying is they don't understand the agenda here. The agenda is to take away all of our freedoms, and the freedom to carry guns, the freedom to protest, the freedom to rally, the freedom, of speech. And we see this appearing here in many places, and Charlottesville was the big setup, and I think there's going to be more, because what this is doing is this is pushing people into the agreement to allow the controllers.
Alternative.
Exactly. So,
Yes.
because then that's what it's saying. You take down those statues. Like I said, you take down those statues of, the presidents who were slaveholders. And well, you might as well take down all the statues in all the museums, because there was slavery forever. I'm certainly against this terrible thing, but I'm just saying people want their way, and their way is take down those statues, but it's not going to erase the big issue here.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to solve the problem. And hating each other and screaming at each other and carrying a sign and stomping on each other, that's not going to change things. It's not. It's only putting us into a deeper crap here with the controllers who are happy. They're watching everybody on the street. Yay, they're doing exactly what we want them to do.
Mm-hmm.
Fighting each other, hating each other. Well, you can't do great harm when people stand in unity. It's impossible, But when you're divided, it's easy then to control people.
And it's funny too, Barbara, we talk about divisions in society. Well, the divisions we see in society today didn't happen overnight. They've been brought in incrementally over the last, I'd say really what I've seen in the last 20 or 30 years, where now we're such a divided society that we can't stand together, that we have these divisions that we can't even recognize.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to disagree. I don't think it's
Okay.
the last 20 or 30 years. This is something that has been going on in societies throughout the world. This is a latent type of systematic separatist agenda, violence against another or others. We could look at the burning times. You're familiar with the burning times, the Inquisition?
Yeah, I've studied that, Barb. When I was saying really is we're seeing a really ramp up of the agenda. The same agenda that we see being used right now has been used for thousands of years. I know
That's
that.
true.
I
It
understand
is a
that.
ramping up. Yep.
But what I'm saying right now is we're seeing a real ramping up of this agenda.
So you say, why is that? The question is, I agree with you. I always question when you come up with a perspective that is right on the money. I always go to the next part, which is why. Why do you think at this stage, at this timeline, this is happening, the ramping up? Why do you think that is? Suddenly, here we are, 20, 30 years now, the shift, the ramping up. What is going on in the hidden picture or the bigger picture? I have to look at that, because we can't just say, oh, yeah, it's ramping up. It's been ramping up. But why?
Well, they're coming to the end of their agenda, Barbara, is what I see. I see their whole agenda coming to a point where they're going to unleash some things on the human race that are going to knock the human race right off their feet. When a person's mind, it's funny, when a person's mind is put into a state of chaos, that person will basically do anything it takes to relieve that chaos inside their brain. And if the government all of a sudden puts society into a state of chaos, all they have to do is come up with the answer, problem, reaction, solution.
That's
and they've
right.
used that same agenda over and over again. But what I see coming now is a ramping up, where we're going to come to a point where there is something monumental. A lot of people that I know are really feeling this right now, Barbara, that something's going to happen. We can't put our fingers on it, but we see such an allegory of events unfolding all over the planet, not just in our political system, but also in our weather, in our geological status right now. We're seeing an increase of earthquakes in magnitudes and around the planet that we have never seen before, and that's a fact. The same thing with volcanoes. The same thing with the oceans. Our currents are changing, our tides are changing. Everything is changing very, very quickly. And where it all is going to end up, I know because I've studied biblical prophecy and I live my life by that. But to try and explain this to somebody, to really make them understand why this is happening right now, you really have to go down the rabbit holes, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I do, and I've been traveling down rabbit holes for a while here, checking things out. The only
Yeah,
way
me
you're gonna
too.
really, the only way you're gonna really find the truth, you gotta dive in, and
They're
you
ugly.
gotta be willing to dive in, and you have to be willing, and you have to be willing and able. Able means you have to know how to get out. You
Exactly.
dive in that rabbit hole to find the truths, and you're going to be hit hard. So you have to have the ability to get out and get yourself stable again and not be taken down, and stay in the rabbit hole in despair and hopelessness.
Right. I
So
agree.
here you say the Bible, I know very little about the Bible, but I've been looking more at the Bible recently because there's certain things that I saw that I want to investigate this. Okay. Now, I have my perspectives about the Bible, which I will get into in a moment. But what I'm saying is, I became intrigued about the similarities, if not the identical prophecies of indigenous peoples and the Bible. Now, these prophecies are carried through millennia, okay, as is the Bible. The Bible's 2,000 years, or even later, but and it's been revised over and over again by various persons, males, as the Torah, for instance, reading about the Torah, and has been over many centuries revised by different Hebrew scholars and their interpretations of these writings. And so looking at this, it's not just these that are giving prophecies that we see unfolding. It is others, other nations. It is many other nations, ancient nations. So I look at that and I say, okay, we are in the time of prophecy, and they're all lining up. So um, here's the thing. I feel that what you said before, because I asked the question, why is this ramping up now? What's that plan? And I agree with you because they're reaching the end of their agenda, the end of their plan, and they are going to make it happen now, or they want to make it happen, which I feel. Now, this is my perspective, and when I speak to the public, I always say, these are the messages and the perspectives that I have gotten. This is what I have alone come to realize. Okay, it's my perspective, it's my viewpoint. I'm not telling you, you must agree with me. I'm just sharing. Okay, and I want people to be able to discern what they feel for themselves is true or not. That's where we all need to be. So I'm not claiming to be any, person who has all the answers, because no one has all the answers. The only one I feel, or the only whatever possibly has the answers, is the creator of all. And ultimately, we do not know what the end will be or when it will be. We just do not know, because I'm not God, I'm not creator, and neither are you. And you can read all you want. I could read all I want, or I could sit and listen to those elders, the wise ones, over and over and over again, but they never say this is what is going to happen and when. They know what's leading, okay, coming, prophecy wise, they know what's coming, but nobody knows really the ultimate final thing. That's in the hands of Creator, but I feel that we as humans are we are like the hope for the world in Creator's eyes, in our Creator's eyes. So what are we going to do? How are we going to participate? And I don't mean getting out in the streets. I don't mean revolution. I don't mean that. Or you could say a revolution of the spirit. I agree with that. But I don't mean that warring, angry, fighting attitude. That's not what I'm talking about. Participation in the way Creator would like us to, or dreamed us to participate. Because I feel this is part of what is missing, and this is a key piece, because it's all in Creator's hands, but it's sort of like watching a chess game, or a game board. Who's going to make this move? Who's going to make that move? Who's going to fall short? Who's going to get, carried away? who's going to rise to the occasion on a level that I'm going to say is a higher frequency that you could ever imagine, that is so needed, that is to me a key piece. So I can't say the Bible is has all the answers, and I cannot say that the Torah has all the answers, and I cannot say that the elders have all the answers either. They have pieces. All have pieces. The ultimate situation, the ultimate, whatever you want to call it, finality or the final whatever, is up to Creator, is in Creator's hands. But we have to think about how we are going to participate in this particular timeline now, and it is up to us basically to create and manifest what would be for the good of ourselves, our families, and the whole. And that's participation on that level is what I'm talking about. And then I say, okay, let's say that there is a loving God, a loving Creator. I say Creator, Mother, Father. Let's say that there is an omniscient, loving being who is watching all this. Well, first of all, where we live here on this magnificent sphere in the universe is a paradise. And some of the paradise still remains, still untouched. But much of it we have seen is covered over with tar, cement, and destroyed and whatever. So we know all that, right? And being continually destroyed. So let's say that this one who created this paradise here from a beautiful, joyous, loving dream vision. I mean, this is a dream, a vision of this creation. This is how I look at this. And it's observing this being, this omniscient one, is observing all that's going on here on this jewel in the universe, placed all kinds of whatever's children down here, and how they are acting, how they are behaving, what they're doing to this creation. Mm-hmm. When I really look at what's going on with the creation, with this earth, with the nature, with the beings that we share this earth with, and the little children, I just weep, because it's heartbreaking. It's so heartbreaking. Yes, we know about Fukushima, but there's more than just Fukushima. Yes, we know about the chemtrails, but there's more than that. It's endless. It's endless. And I just weep because what we're doing to this creation, not only just the nature itself, but the creatures, but ourselves, to our children and others' children. So I look at this and I say, well, if I were that being, that one,
I'd be a little bit pissed off.
I'd be pissed off too. I'd be shaking my head saying, wow, this is sad. This is a sad state of affairs. I don't like this. I just don't like this. You know, so then what is determined is up to that one. And we're participating either in a high frequency or a low frequency or a middle ground somewhere, ignorant of our acts, of how it is affecting the whole and our Creator. You know, arrogant about, that, I think. So.
Really, we kind of, if you look at history at all, Barb, it's just really, if you think about the last 120, 140 years when we really started the acceleration of destruction of the planet. Prior to that time in history, people really kind of looked after their backyard. The native people especially, they knew what they could fish, they knew what they could do, what they could take from the land. The land provided everything they needed, and they respected it. But now we have a society where people are completely blind to what is actually going on to the planet itself. What we're doing to this planet right now, we should be hanging our heads for. But it's complacency in society. People really, really, I don't know if they don't understand, or have we become so hard in our hearts that we don't care? I look at this world that's coming for my children and my grandchildren. I ask myself every day, they're not going to get to enjoy the same things I did growing up. It's just not going to happen. And we're not here to put fear into people's hearts at all. But I look at realistically what's going on to my planet right now. Every aspect of the biosphere, of our nature, of our animals is under attack. We're seeing our mammals die off at unprecedented rates. We see the same thing happening in the oceans. I mean, I'm on sites here, Barbara, every day on mass die-offs around the planet, and people just aren't getting it. Why? Why is the human race so hard in the heart that the one thing that we should all be concerned about, that we should all be sitting down and having conversations about, is what our children are going to get to live on this planet. And right now, we're leaving them such a pile of poop. It's unbelievable. Why can't people wake up to this? The most important thing in our lives. I mean, political parties are going to come and go. I mean, the new car is going to come and it's going to go. But what we're doing right now to the planet should be the priority in everybody's conversations right now, and it's not. And I don't understand that, Barbara, because the facts are out there. You can go on the internet right now and in half an hour go to reputable sites all over the world and read these reports. And if that doesn't shake you to the core and ask you what's coming in the very near future, you really got your head in the sand. Go ahead.
Well, the head in the sand thing is real. I mean, and how does that happen? We have to look at the question always arises with us people when we say, why don't they see this? Why don't people see this? Why aren't they awake? You have to go to the reason why. Why aren't they? And that, to me, is part of the agenda. So the agenda is here constantly at play. The agenda is to keep people ignorant of this. The agenda is to keep people sidetracked. Now, people carrying on about those statues down there and spitting on each other, and unfortunately, a woman was killed. Some think that that's not a big deal. Some are even saying they're glad. I mean, you think of this, you look at this and say, oh, how could a human being, but this is always our question, how could we human beings, how could those people, what are they thinking, why not, why aren't they, why? You have to stop the question and go to the source of the why. The source is the agenda. The source is the manipulation through mainstream media, gaming, the consumerism, the brainwashing, starting very early for generations here about, what you should be doing, how you should live your life, what you should be able to achieve, and what you need to achieve. Nothing about how to take care of this earth. Nothing about this is your home, folks. We all live here together. This is paradise. Let's take care of it. None of that is taught in schools. No speaker on a political, platform speaks about that. This is not part of the information here that is the crucial piece. It is the key piece. As we continue destroying this home in our homes, we are destroying ourselves, and yes, our children, and so on. And yes, there is the way of the First Nations people that considered, they lived their life according to the teachings. Whatever you do today will affect the next 7 generations. So think about what you are doing. How will it affect the next 7 generations? Okay, so that means being very respectful, responsible, and very careful about what you do. And that's how the people live their lives. That is not even thought about in most cultures today. It's certainly not taught in other cultures, what I'm saying. What is taught is the agenda is basically you need to achieve a big house, a big car, lots of money, and step on people to get there. And if you have to take down a forest to get that, that's fine too. So, and we're all part of that. You see, we can't say those people, and we are not. We are all a part of this, and I include myself. We live with, technology. I drive a car. I try not to drive as much, but so we are all a part of it. Some worse than others. Okay, and I'm not talking about let's go back to caves. And that's not what I'm talking about. We have technology now that is being used in the wrong way, that was meant to be used in the way to help humankind. Exactly. But that's not happening, you see. Exactly. Like everyone, we could have clean water, but they've dirtied the water on purpose, and they don't allow anybody to have clean water. They polluted it with fluoride and fluorine and whomever, whatever. And the air and the foods, GMO foods. So that's their agenda, and everybody goes along with it. But they have the technology that's been known by us for everyone could eat well. There should be no hunger here on this Mother Earth. But the agenda is not about that. The agenda is to create mass chaos and fear and terror, and anger upon others because they are told it's those others who are making your life miserable.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you see that that is an agenda? So when you say it's easy to go online and see all these things, but there's so many people looking at, and I don't have a TV, so I'm just going to say Jerry Springer. He's probably not even on anymore, but it's like people are living life vicariously through TV. That's what they're doing.
It's called programming for a reason, Barbara.
Exactly.
And you know what? I got TV out of my house now. It's over 2 years now since I cut the wire to the cable company. The only thing
I killed my TV 25, 30 years ago.
Well, I still have a big screen in the house, but when I want to watch a documentary on the internet, I simply plug in the HDMI cord and I watch it through my big screen. But that's
I guess what you and I are saying is that we've made a choice.
Yeah, we
selected something for our well-being and our children's well-being by getting rid of the controlling machine, the programmer. We've determined that that's not in my home. It will never be in my household.
What a monumental
I don't have
Barbara.
What?
What a monumental step that would be in society right now if people could recognize what TV is doing to the children and just simply say, kids, the TV's gone. If you want to watch something, we'll put on a documentary.
No, I'll say, kids, if you want to watch something, go out and watch the birds.
Yeah, or go outside and play. We used to play cops and robbers and cowboys and Indians. You could never find me in the house when I was young. They had to call me at dark every night to get me in the house. We were always out doing stuff. Well, we don't see that in society anymore. You could get a group of 20 young people at a party, and they'll all be texting themselves across the room.
Well, it's a sad state of affairs. But so you question, why don't people see it? You question that, and that's your answer.
Exactly.
And this is the new generation, the young generation. They
have no life skills.
They're cyberheads.
They're cyberheads. They have absolutely no life skills at all.
Well, exactly.
Well, but when I was raising my kids, I made a point of taking them out in the woods and teaching them how to start a fire with nothing, and how basic skills in the woods. I took the kids out lots, picking mushrooms with them, and I know they have a few life skills, but most kids these days are growing up glued to their TVs or glued to their iPods, and that's what they live. That's their whole social experience. People don't see what it's doing to our children, the social interaction that is so necessary in the development of a normal person's personality through the course of their life is taken away from us. Hence, we have all kinds of behavioral problems coming up in society. It's all tied together, folks. Go ahead, Barb.
Well, I have said to people, challenged people when I've talked on my show, I said, okay, if you don't think you're brainwashed, here's a suggestion. Attempt to do this. When you get up in the morning, pay attention to what your routine is. A lot of people, they get up, you go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, blah, blah, blah. And maybe you put your coffee on, whatever. Immediately what you do you go to your iPhone? Do you go to the TV? What do you do with the technology? Is that part of your routine in the morning? How many hours do you spend on it? And so on and so forth. Change your routine. Don't go to anything, any technologies. Don't go. Refuse. Instead, take that time and go out for a walk. Or do yoga. I don't know. Do whatever. Sit and meditate. Change your routine and see how it affects you. If you feel like you're going to go crazy, if you feel anxious, if you feel like hungry for something, if you are going mad because you've got to get on there and see who said what or who did this, or you've got to type out this or that, or you've got to, whatever it is, you are brainwashed. You don't have control over your own self, over your own life, over your own mind. And so, like in Japan, they have these programs to help people who can't get away from their iPhones. They actually have a deprogramming system for these people. And people, it's a hard program. It's a hard program because they take their technology away out of their hands. They take that machine that they're hooked into, so they feel like they're dying. Literally, they feel like they can't survive. They feel panicky. They get panicky. What's going on?
How well is it working, Barb?
This is very real, and so people laugh at that, but you try it. You just try it, and you see how you feel. And there's going to be an effect. If you are brainwashed, you are going to feel it. You'll hear a little voice in your head. prompting you. Yeah, go over there. Go check that. Check this mail. Check that. Look at this. Go talk to that one. Or whatever it is, you're going to hear the voice in your head that will not leave you alone. It's going to drive you crazy. Then you finally throw up your hand and say, okay, let me just look. I'll just spend 20 minutes. But then 20 minutes turns into an hour and so on and so forth. I've worked with people, counseling people who were so caught up in gaming shows, they spent 10, 12 and more hours on these shows, and they wouldn't eat or barely sleep, and so on. This is addiction.
I know people, Barb, that are raising children that they basically spend no time with their children. They are on these games all day long. Since they get home from work, they throw a microwave dinner in the oven for the kids. They sit down in front of the computer. They give the kids an iPad, and I'm talking, children that are 3, 4, 5 years old. And I look at these people, and I just absolutely want to scream. I want to shake my head and go, "What are you doing?" And they just don't see it. They're so brainwashed and so controlled by these gaming systems now. It boggles my mind. Everything's upside down.
Well, there's a patterning. There is a physicality to this and a psychological effect to this. You see, it's a patterning that affects the brain waves. And that's what's going on. So when you are brainwashed, basically you have a constant input of a certain information. It's a constant input. It's an overcharged, overdone input of information. That's brainwashing. So your brain starts to function according to that patterning and according to that level of input. So it settles itself. The brain sort of reacts and settles into this particular level of frequency or level of energy that it's receiving. And for children, their brains are developing, so they don't have the ability. They're just in this functioning system where their brains are adapting to this high level of input and frequency and imprinting and patterning. So the brain is actually taking in and remembering this particular patterning. Okay, it happens to adults too, of course. So then you step away. Let's say you step away, or somebody takes your machine away, your technology away, and the brain starts talking to you. The brain starts reacting because the brain now is hungry for this particular pattern. That's how it's been functioning. Right. So this patterning, this input, and this brainwashing starts to ramp up, and anxiety takes over, and even depression, and even suicidal thoughts. I mean, people have had this experience. Because the brain, the physicality of the brain, you could say, or the system, is hungry, so hungry for this patterning imprint that has been used to, that it's ramping up this desire, this longing, this hunger, and that causes people to pretty much go nuts. It's like,
and a lot of people are, Barb. A lot of people are. We're down to the last minute here, Barb. You want to quickly plug your show on?
Well, yeah. Right now I have, on Fridays I have a show at 5 Eastern on HaggieShack.com. It's Beyond Reality, a lot of good stuff I offer, and talks and perspectives and out there and insider information stuff.
Well, I'm getting some messages in chat. They'd like to have you back in again, Barbara, so we'll have to do this again.
That would be great.
In the very near future. This has been, anytime I get a chance to talk with you, I really, really enjoy it. We disagree on some points, but we agree on so many. It's great to have you in and share your thoughts and great perspectives on things today, Barbara. Thank you very much for joining me.
Okay, thank you very much.
And with that, folks, I think we're almost up to the banner here. It's been a great show, and I'll see you next Friday. Have a great show.